My name is Clint Dobson. I'm the research director with RDAR. Joining us, we'll throw up on the screen there, the slide deck. Is that there? Oh, thank you. Is the RDAR team. And so introductions, Alexis Brown and Nathan Anderson, program coordinators with RDAR. So if you've submitted an application or a grant agreement or interim report, you will have connected with Alexis and Nathan. Our research program officers, Nancy Tout, who works in the crops and the soil space, Brian Carissa with looking after our livestock and primarily ruminants and pork proposals. Our newest addition to the team, Janelle Foos, working in poultry and feed, and Trevor Prout in value-added and specialty crops, bees, and irrigation. So some important sectors for the Lethbridge region. Also joining RDAR is Janata Hawthorne, our RDAR's communication lead, Amanda Wolfer, our digital communication specialist, and Lydia Telpash, our operations director with RDAR. So we are a small team of 14 at RDAR, and we're pleased that you were able to join us here this morning. We will be tag teaming the presentation, so you'll have the opportunity to hear from us directly over the next hour, and it's just really nice to be able to put a face to the name. That way, when we're out in the field or when we're down there, please approach us. We look to engage with you. We would have liked to have had this session in person. Unfortunately, doing it virtually is how we're having to do this here this morning, but in the near future, we aim to have more face-to-face. Next. So the purpose of this morning's session is to introduce you to RDAR, and more specifically to introduce you to RDAR's new strategic plan and what it means to you as research partners. The presentation will cover who we are, what we do, how we work, and then speak to working together. The presentation will take approximately 30 minutes, at which time we will open it up for questions and answers. We ask that it will hold the questions until the end of the presentation. If any of your colleagues are having difficulties joining in, because we know there was several registered for this morning, if they're having difficulties, if they can reach out to hello@rdar.ca, and we will do our best to assist them in getting connected. Just in terms of audio, I know, okay, everyone is muted, so that's greatly appreciated. Next. So RDAR's purpose is to power the research that transforms agriculture and positions Alberta's producers and agriculture industry for success. RDAR was announced in March 2020, and we were created intentionally to be different, to be bold, and to be a model that could deliver results that other models were unable to deliver. And so a little bit, our history, we were incorporated in July of 2020, and much of the team here joined in October of 2020. So we were excited to celebrate their 1-year anniversary this past fall. RDAR is a nonprofit corporation. We are governed, next please, governed by a board of 10 directors. And RDAR's members include 33 producer organizations spanning Alberta's crop and livestock sectors, irrigation, applied research and forage associations, and associations such as the Potato Growers of Alberta, Alberta Sugar Beets, important industries in the Lethbridge area. So RDAR's mandate is to target strategic investments in producer-led, results-driven agriculture research to power the competitiveness, profitability, productivity, and sustainability of agriculture in Alberta. When we look outwards, our vision is that Alberta's agriculture sector is achieving its full potential through the acceleration and adoption of results-driven research. So there's some pretty key words within our mandate and in our vision, be it that we are producer-led and we're results-driven, and that we're accelerating the adoption of research in the hands of producers across the province. We carry this out through our values. First is our integrity and transparency in our decision making. Second is collaboration. We are responsive and driven to work with our partners. Innovative. We believe in science-based leadership in ag research. Legacy. We aim to create a legacy of success. And lastly, courageous. We are unapologetically bold and aspirational in our path to transform ag research and how it is funded. Next. So, as I said, really a real purpose of our presentation here this morning and engaging with you is to speak to RDAR's strategic priorities. RDAR just had its first AGM in January, and that's where we launched our strategic plan. And within that, there's 3 strategic priorities. First is that RDAR looks to invest in outcome-driven research projects that contribute to increased farm cash receipts, exports, value-added investments, and jobs. So critical there is outcome-driven. Second is that RDAR looks for projects that accelerate the adoption of smart, sustainable, science-based management solutions. Research and knowledge mobilization is focused on adoption, but what our priorities are is really enhancing that and accelerating that adoption. Lastly, RDAR's aims to foster transdisciplinary partnerships that creates opportunities to resolve issues. The agriculture industry operates in a complex environment in today's age, and to solve those challenges, we need to bring different skill sets to the table in collaboration. So these 3 strategic priorities are very important, and as I said, we will be expanding on them in more detail during the rest of the presentation. Ultimately, the success of funding requests will be influenced by the ability to be aligned and deliver upon RDAR's strategic priorities. Next, please. So in delivering, excuse me, and in launching our new strategic plan, we've been going through and looking at our application forms, at our interim and final reporting templates. And so you'll see some changes there if you along the way in that how we enable and attract outcome-based activities aligned with our priorities. So we are moving away from or moving beyond output-based measures such as training or number of publications or the number of highly qualified personnel. Those are all important, but our outcome-based measures move us beyond just output-based. It really is measuring and focusing on the outcomes at a producer and at the industry level. The outcome-based measures that we have include things like increased farm cash receipts, increased export revenues, increased agri-sector employment, growth in value-added sector. So those are areas to in developing proposals, thinking about where your research fits in, to focus in on outcomes, those outcomes. As I said, RDAR was created to be bold and to do things that other models couldn't. And as a result, that carries through in terms of RDAR's evaluating RDAR's performance. We will be measured on things on outcome-based, such as percentage greenhouse emission reduction, percentage increase in water use efficiency, number of new practices or technologies adopted by producers. So very much focused on outcomes. So with that, next, please, and I'll introduce Janelle, and she'll introduce RDAR's research priorities.
Good morning, everyone. So you're probably wondering now where your research fits into RDAR's new strategic framework. So RDAR currently funds projects all the way from discovery to market adoption, and staying really true to our mandate about being producer-led, RDAR sat down to the table with our producer groups to really identify key research priorities that would increase their profitability. So the first research priority is just that, increasing productivity, profitability, and competitiveness of our Alberta agriculture. So underneath here, we're looking for projects that will improve crop, animal, and soil health, production efficiencies, feed utilization, and the use of genomics for improvements. So our second research priority that was identified was increasing sustainability. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory, looking at how we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, mitigate some of the antimicrobial resistance, and increase water efficiency use and quality. Third is increasing market access. So this will be and include projects that will look at the development of value-added and alternative products, as well as looking at improving current products for food safety, quality, and nutrition. And then last but definitely not least, a key priority for us would be extension knowledge mobilization. So this is really near and dear to RDAR's heart and our mandate. And although it can be a project all on its own, which Brian will talk about a little bit later, it's really important to include this in all of your other research proposals. Next slide. So in the interest of getting to know us a bit better and transparency, I thought we'd walk you through the funding process here at RDAR. So calls will go out that will be producer identified, just as discussed. Applications will be received and reviewed internally to make sure that they meet the terms and conditions of our research call and that they meet our key research priorities. Once we've determined that, your research proposals will go out for an external, unbiased panel review or peer review, and that will include people from the academic world, the private industry, as well as people from our producer groups. Once those peer reviews come in, your project will go to one of 3 internal reviews depending on the funding ask. And then hopefully your project will be successful, be approved, and you will receive funding. And I think it's really important to note here that the projects do come full circle. The research priorities are identified by our producers, and we're really hoping that your projects will provide benefit to Alberta agriculture. So RDAR has been really successful in the past year and a half, funding over 200 projects to date and with $43 million of funded research. Next slide. So keeping with this transparency, we just thought we'd go over our investment portfolio to date in the last year and a half. So of these 200 projects that have been funded, you can see here on the left-hand figure that they're really well diversified and balanced between these 4 key research priorities. And of those 200 projects, they're pretty well balanced between crops, livestock, as well as soil and water. So their research priorities are dynamic and shifting to meet needs, and more information can be found on our website for a more inclusive list. So now I'll pass it over to Nathan to talk about how and where you can apply.
Good morning, everyone. RDAR has launched this new grant management portal, the Agricultural Research Grant Organizer, or ARGO. ARGO will be your one-stop grant management portal for your funding journey. You can do everything from the application to completion of your project. This includes completing reports, communicating with staff, and more. The system that RDAR was previously using only allowed up to the grant application step. This meant researchers were responsible for keeping track of their approved projects and their accompanying reports offline. All your projects with RDAR and the accompanying scheduled reports will be easily accessible from your homepage within ARGO. Email reminders about upcoming reports will be sent out automatically. For this reason and for many reasons, I believe ARGO will be a great benefit to both researchers and to RDAR. You can access ARGO by visiting ardar.smartsimple.ca or going to the main RDAR website and clicking on the Get Funding section. If you had an active project with RDAR on or before December 31st, 2021, an account should have already been created for you, and an access email should have been sent out. All approved projects before December 31st are imported into the system already, along with the scheduled reports. Most projects approved in the new year, including the 2022 AFC projects, will not be in ARGO yet, but are expected to be there within the next few weeks. There's currently one funding opportunity available, and that's for the 2022-23 Agricultural Funding Consortium, and you can access that through ARGO. As new funding opportunities appear, they will start appearing solely through ARGO, and that will be the new place to go for all funding opportunities with RDAR. So you can log into ARGO to apply to that current AFC opportunity and all future opportunities. If you do not have an account yet, you will need to create one. Tutorials have been created to help you navigate ARGO. The tutorials can be found at rdar.ca/ARGO. There are currently videos on creating a new account, updating your personal information, applying for funding, and completing reports. New videos will be added as needed. And as you navigate through ARGO, you may have questions or comments. The system is new and we're continuing to find ways to improve. We're open to any feedback or questions you may have, so please send that over to research@rdar.ca. I'll now turn it over to Janata. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Janata, the communications lead here at RDAR, and I'm going to be talking about communicating your research outcomes. So RDAR is here to amplify your research. We want to be part of your success. It is very important to recognize and acknowledge RDAR and your funding partner's contribution in making your research possible. Be sure to include RDAR branding on all of your research communications. If you're not sure, we can show you how. Being able to clearly communicate your work in a way that will generate interest, show impact, outcomes, and inform audiences why your research is important to society is a critical skill for any researcher to have to be successful. Think creatively about the impact and visual ways that you can share your research with multiple audiences, like citizens, research, agribusiness, and academic communities. RDAR has all of the communication resources and a useful guide to support your communications needs. We are here to help you share your research results. We have a monthly newsletter, social media channels, and a wide media and partner contact list to help you spread news of your research outcomes. We can support you with project announcements, logo, branding, concerns, and much more. So you can visit rdar.ca/getfunding and click on the resources section. So please stay connected and reach out to us early for all of your communication support along your research journey. So now I'll pass it over to Brian to talk about knowledge transfer. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brian. I'll just expand a bit more about the knowledge transfer, which Janelle has mentioned briefly about it. So knowledge transfer, which in other areas it be called KTT or sometimes even CDL in some other areas, it's a very essential component of all the funding that RDAR does. The purpose of KTT in general is the concept of converting knowledge that comes from research projects into actions that the industry or producers or other end users can be able to utilize, so to result in change within the industry. We encourage researchers to engage with end users throughout the research process, and this includes all the way from the time when they're coming up with their priorities to the time when they're implementing those research activities. We here at RDAR, we look at KTT as building relationships between researchers and end users. We have found situations where a researcher has a consistent list or group of industry, be it producers or feedlots, where they can have that relationship with those producers, and they keep consulting to know what kind of needs those producers have, and then they develop research that responds to the needs of those producers. And those relationships tend to work the best way in terms of coming up with those priorities, but also implementing activities, and also all the way up to the adoption. So when these relationships have been established, they help, like I said, they help the end users to build capacity to adopt the research that comes out of the project that RDAR will have funded, or the researchers will have completed. So we look at it as if the researcher has that responsibility. As we say, it's an outcome-based research. So there's the responsibility to impact change within the industry. There's that process of helping producers to be able to have the capacity to actually adopt those kind of results that have come from the research project. And then the end users are helping the researchers to develop research that is relevant to them, that will impact them and cause positive change. KTT also developed that pathway to adoption. I mentioned that consistently, that the research has to be outcome focused, and it has to be aimed at causing a change either in practice or in processes that the industry is utilizing in terms of aligning with the priorities that we talked about previously. At RDAR, as mentioned by Janelle, we do fund research that is exclusively KTT, and we also fund research where KTT is a part of a larger project. As I mentioned, it's a very essential component, and I think sometimes we probably would like to use the word mandatory, but it depends on circumstances. But it's a very essential component. If you have any questions on KTT, if you want to get connections with industry, or if you have any questions in terms of developing a KTT plan for your project, reach out to one of the RPOs here, and we'll be able to guide you through that process. Thank you. And next slide.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nancy, and I do look forward to meeting up with everyone either in your labs to get a tour or in the field to see your research come to life. So I want to talk about an area that's really important to RDAR, which is partnerships. And you will have seen earlier that one of RDAR's core values is collaboration. And also Clinton spent a little bit of time on our strategic priorities. So one of our strategic priorities is fostering transdisciplinary partnerships. So partnerships and collaborations is an important aspect of our merit-based assessment that we will use to evaluate your research proposals as well. So why is that? Why do we value, collaborations and partnerships? I think we can all agree that the complex challenges and opportunities that agriculture faces today and in the future can't be solved by any one group or through a single discipline alone. And so we're embracing something called a T4P model. And why we think that that's, the place to go is because we believe that that can maximize the innovation potential when you bring different groups and different disciplines together. We also believe that it can maximize our impact to make sure that the innovations end up in the hands of the end user. You will also have seen the words acceleration and adoption also prominent in our vision. And so that's where we're sort of heading towards in our decision making. So T4P, what does it stand for? Transdisciplinary. So across multiple different disciplines, scientific disciplines, that brings it together. And then you've got the public, private, and producer organizations coming together. And so certainly partnerships can take on many forms. I know a lot of people think that, that means everybody's putting cash on the table, but I think that sweet spot in the middle there that you see on the slide can take, can come in many different forms. Sometimes that's an active participant, a team member role on your research proposal. Sometimes that comes from a very important in-kind contribution, someone bringing their expertise to the table. And sometimes it does come in a cash contribution. Sometimes it comes just as an advisory role or a mentorship role as part of your proposal development early on. So again, leverage not just the dollars, but the different capacities and expertise that can come from other disciplines, whether that's public, private, or producer. And I think I saw, just to use a real life example that's maybe familiar in your area. So I think I saw Dr. Singh in our list of participants there too, but I think that's a great example how you can bring different disciplines together, as well as all of the 3 Ps there in a model to sort of accelerate the team coming together and potentially the outcomes as well too. So what does that mean when we think about our focus, RDAR's focus on partnerships? And we're certainly going to be measured on our partnerships and our collaboration that we can sort of foster. But what does it mean for you as a researcher? I think RDAR's funded projects will require a demonstrated commitment to partnership development. And again, like I said, it can take on many different forms. It can show, evidence of already an established partnership or a partnership maybe that's just started to get underway. So I guess one thing I'd like to leave you with then is, as you think through your next research proposal that you're going to submit, ask yourself the question, can I accelerate the research potential or adoption through a strategic partnership, or by inviting in diverse skill sets that may address gaps in the team, or really just simply to accelerate the potential? So again, be sure to really consider the capacity of the team to deliver the intended outcomes. And yeah, when you're thinking about your next research proposal, think about partnerships, think about collaboration, and see how it can potentially accelerate your research proposal. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Trevor to talk about some other areas that are important to our research.
Thank you, Nancy, and good morning to all the participants this morning. So as we're at the beginning of this year's Agriculture Funding Consortium cycle, we thought that we'd outline a couple of elements of what we deem to be a strong proposal to support your success through this year's cycle. Through our learnings of the first 18 months of our operation and in an effort to align with the recently released strategic framework, our team has undertaken an internal improvement initiative, which has identified some key areas of a strong proposal. And I just want to outline a couple of those for you right now. So firstly, ensure that you're clearly identifying the industry gap that the project work looks to address, including articulation of the scope of that gap. One key area of focus should be the economic impact that issue is currently causing and that this work could look to address. As well, consider that the economics of your project will be what eventually drives the adoption by producers. So this really is a key area to focus on. As Nancy had mentioned, collaboration. Involve industry early on in the project development process. This will bridge the producer P within the 4P model as well. Keep in mind that industry members do sit at the AFC funding table, and it is valuable to have a group aware of your work and able to speak to the value to that sector. As well, consider the larger picture of your work. Scope is not just within the industry context, but within the broader context of your research program. If previous work has been completed, mention the results and how this new project will build on those results. Conversely, if this is a earlier stage work and additional work will be required afterwards to move closer to commercialization, then articulate this, including the current technology readiness level and where it will be at the conclusion of the project. As well, as we always, you've probably heard before, ensure you have SMART project objectives, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. As well, multidisciplinary approaches to projects can be valuable as gaps in industry become more complex. It's important to consider the value that a different lens looking at the problem could provide. Next slide, please. And the even better ifs. Feel free always to reach out to our team early on in the ideation stage. Our research program officers are always happy to evaluate project drafts, offer feedback to strengthen the proposal. As well, we can also provide linkages to strategic partnerships that can support the work and get that additional P within the 4P model that was mentioned earlier. Leveraging of additional resources not only supports the management of the project budget, but can provide a conduit towards enhanced knowledge mobilization efforts and ultimately support adoption. This can include MyTax funding, as RDAR funding can be leveraged towards MyTax support. As well, contributions from industry partners do highlight the value of the work to the sector, and those industry partners do happen to be our RDAR membership as well. So there's dual value there. As well, look at how your project can support across the value chain. Focusing on multiple facets of the value chain can provide broader benefit. We do see many projects that do support more than one linkage of the supply chain, but it is not always clearly articulated throughout the proposal and really is a missed opportunity to provide that broader value. Lastly, as mentioned earlier in the presentation, RDAR exists to power the research that transforms agriculture. The future of agriculture, as per RDAR, is that agriculture in Alberta is smart and connected, responsive to climate change, innovative, differentiated, and focused on food supply, affordability, and safety.
Yeah, again, thanks everyone for their time today. Just wanted to leave you with some important dates and current funding opportunities. So April 1st is kind of that date that we're formally transitioning over to ARGO, but I did want to give a big shout out and thank you to those that have already gone in. You will have received your username and to be able to go in, and some have even started to submit their interim and final reports for some of the historical and existing projects that were transferred over to ARDAR. So a big thank you for that. I would encourage you to not wait till the last minute. So April 7th is that AFC deadline to submit your LOI. And because that competition will be, it's the first one done through ARGO, again, really encourage you to go in now with your username and get all that set up, because I'd hate for you to go on April 7th for your first first date with ARGO and then run into some problems. So yeah, April 7th is that deadline for the LOI for AFC. We still do have the drought and extreme heat funding opportunity where there's still funds available, as well as accelerating agriculture innovations. Those are both continuous intake programs. And we do have a new AFC website. Hopefully you've had a chance to check that out. But it's a bit new and improved, and it's got all of the different members within the Ag Funding Consortium up there. It's got all of their priorities, including all of the new commission priorities up and running in there, and all the links to those kind of websites. And I would say if there was one website to kind of remember, it's rdar.ca. And if you go there, there's a big flashing sort of button there on the right-hand side that says Get Funding. So click on that. That's really the link for all the research community to kind of go to. All of your resources will be there, everything with ARGO, all of the current funding opportunities, and also invite you to go to our website to look at our new refreshed strategic plan as well. Next slide. And lastly, it's an invitation to stay connected with us. So we're on a number of different social media channels. Again, invite you to check out our website. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on LinkedIn. Also, if you don't know where to direct your questions, so which member of the research team, simply reach out to research@rdar.ca, and that email goes to Nathan and Alexis, our coordinators, and they will redirect your question and get you in touch with the right person within the research team. As Clinton mentioned, we did come together as a team in October of 2020. We have not yet been together as a physical presence in an office, but once we do, we will be at that address in the Alberta Innovates office as well. We do have newsletters as well too. A lot of people have asked throughout the week on how do I stay connected on what's new with RDAR. Please go to our website and stay connected through our newsletter channels. There'll be lots of information that goes through there, and so invite you to stay connected that way. And then finally, Trevor referenced on Monday, an email will go out to all the participants that have signed up for these sessions throughout the week. And there will be an opportunity then to book a one-on-one session with a research program officer specifically addressing your research-specific project questions. I believe the recording will also be sent out, so you'll have access to that, but also send that out to perhaps colleagues who may have had a conflict with today's session as well too. So yeah, let's stay connected. And I think just to amplify, Janata's communication message around, we want to amplify your research message too. And so if you can give us a follow on those different channels, and we'll do a similar thing as well on our end. So again, thanks for your time today, and look forward to meeting up with everyone very soon.